Hey there everybody, it's Angie and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about my favorite art supplies and what I like to use when I'm making my art. So I broke this video down into about 3 categories, so let's jump right into the video. So for the first category is my drawing and sketching supplies, and so for this I like to use my Canson drawing paper for the pencils because I find it is smooth enough and has enough texture to hold the graphite. And I don't usually like to just work with pencils because I really like to color my art, but when I do work with pencils I like to use my Prismacolor turquoise graphite pencils. They come in a range of F, H, all the way to 9B, and 9B is a soft and thick, bold graphite, which is really nice to get those dark values. And then once you go down the scale to 4B, 3B, all the way to H, it gets lighter and the lead gets more fine and harder, and it's really good when you just want to work in light values. And for the next pencil I'm going to be talking about is my Uni Mitsubishi drafting pencil, which is like a mechanical pencil except the graphite is really thick and you don't have to click a bunch of times to extend the lead, but just once you adjust it to whatever length you want. And I like it because you can extrude the lead really long and then shade big areas. And then the next pencil is just a regular 0.7 mechanical pencil. And when I want to make fine details or sketch really small, I like to use my Pentel 0.02 mechanical pencil, which is great because the lead is extremely thin and you can get really fine details with this lead. And now I'm going to be sharpening my Uni pencil because when you do sharpen it, it's just the graphite and you can reuse the graphite and shade bigger areas so you're not throwing anything away. And for blending, I use my finger, but when I want a really smooth finish, I use a blending stump, which is just like a piece of paper that you blend with, and you get a really smooth outcome. And for erasing, I like to use a Pentel plastic eraser. It erases pretty well and it doesn't leave any marks or streaks. And another eraser I like to use is my kneaded eraser because you can pick up the graphite and make things a little lighter or make highlights without making a big mess and smudging your work. Now for the next category I'm going to be talking about are my color pencils and my oil pastels. I don't really do a lot of oil pastels all the time, but when I do, I like to use my Sakura oil pastels because they're really soft and blend super well into each other, and I use them on my Tone Tan sketchbook. I don't actually own pastel paper, but I find that this tanned paper works just fine because it's really smooth and perfect for blending. And here is just a portrait I made with the oil pastels. And here are some eyes I was practicing with the color pencils. I use Prismacolor color pencils, and here are some clouds I also made. And I also really like to use this paper for my color pencils because the paper is really nice and smooth. And because the paper is a different color than white, it really pops out the color on the paper because the paper is a different tone, it helps you see how much more you actually have to layer on the color pencil. Whether as in white, I find that I don't layer as much as I should. So now I'm just gonna do a quick demo of me using these color pencils and just making a little eyeball. For this little subcategory, it's not really a full category, it's just the tools I use to ink. I like to use microns or PH Martin's iridescent silver and gold ink to add highlights. And then for the next category, it's going to be watercolors. As you can see, you actually don't really need a lot of supplies to paint with watercolors, just a paper, paintbrush, and watercolors. For paintbrushes, I like to use these Artist Loft watercolor brushes. They have a plastic barrel, which is great for me because I tend to leave my brushes in water, so this way the barrel doesn't get damaged. And I also have these Pentel water brushes that are great for when I'm out and about and traveling. For paint, I like to use Aquafine watercolor paint. I find that it just works fine for me. I actually used to use Praying watercolors when I was just starting out, but I had to upgrade because those watercolors really did not work well for me. For paper, I like to use my Canson watercolor paper and my Strathmore watercolor paper pad. As you can see, I've already done a couple of watercolor sketches. And with my Strathmore watercolor paper, I like to cut into smaller sections and work with that. So now I'm just going to do a little watercolor demo using the Strathmore watercolor paper. I find that it's great for landscapes or things like that because the texture on the paper is pretty heavy, so I find that it's easier to make landscapes and things on this paper instead of portraits or people. And something I actually forgot to mention was that I use white acrylic paint for making highlights or clouds on my watercolor pieces or on other art. I like to use white acrylic paint to make the highlights. And that's it for this video, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check out the description box for my social media. I do post more on my Instagram, so if you want to see more art by me, please follow me on there. And yeah, there are a couple things I did not actually mention, but that's because I thought they were pretty much self-explanatory. I could make another video using those supplies, so stick around. Bye!